What's up, SMITE fans? Wraithyn here. I am back. We got another patch notes. We got another update. 8.3, the Talons of Tyranny. Let's dive right in, get to the patch notes, tell you what I think and how I think it's going to impact the meta. First up, before we even get started, we got the skins. As usual, the high-res art team is absolutely killing it. I don't know what other games you play that have cosmetics as their main form of monetization, but the high-res art team continues to outdo themselves. I'm not getting paid to say this. I'm going to buy every single one of these, and it will be well worth every dollar. So, Husky Fenrir, Chibi Inu Amaterasu. I love her Chibi skin to begin with. The recolor on the Bacchus cat with a fish skin, all amazing. Necomancer Jean-Qui, that is hysterical. One of my favorite things. Plushie Kernanos. I love the plushie theme. I think we don't get enough variety of themes, and plushie was one of my favorites. To see them come back to this again, amazing. Classic Ao Kwang Kukulkan. This is Ao Kwang's old model when he was Kukulkan, but he wasn't, and then he is, and he's not. I don't know. They changed him around. I wasn't around for it, but anyway, if you're an older Smite player, you get this model back. Dino Mighty Cerberus, another amazing cutesy skin for this this character. Bit Slayer Tsukiyomi, I love this. Like the idea of him as like a pixel game character. Unholy Doodle Ra is hilarious. This is a big time community skin that's been requested for a long time since Rage Occasion drew it up. And it finally made it into the game. It looks amazing. And I can't wait to see it played. Battle Tagger Scotty. I didn't get to see the preview for this one either, but I'm imagining it's good. Scotty always gets decent skins. She's got a ton of them. Chibi Thanatos is hysterical. I love this little dude. I'm a big time Thanatos stan, so being able to see a Chibi on one of my favorite gods, especially after they gave the Chibi avatar, but he didn't have a skin, is awesome. The Forgotten God Shock, I'm still trying to track down. Hopefully I'll have it by the end of the time we're recording this, but a video of the actual review for this skin. I can't wait to see it. I've heard amazing things about it. This is the new tier 5 Shock skin. Shock is kind of like one of those characters that kind of flies under the radar. Everybody thinks he's bad, but has really cool skins. He's really popular. He's played a lot. So I'm really glad to see him get this skin. Lastly, we have the Sobek Remodel. If you've looked at the different gods in their base models, Sobek is a little cartoonish and a little bit lacking. So they upgraded his model like they did with like the remodels with some of the other characters like Vamana. And so Sobek is going to be coming to the shores of the Smite game with his new digs. I like this version. I'm with the chat. This version of Sobek is definitely the best. All right. Just a quick timeline. 8.2 is the bonus balance. So next Tuesday, from the time we're recording this, March 23rd, 2 Tuesdays after that is the Talons of Tyranny, when we're going to see this all hit. And then a bonus update on April 6th after the meta shakes out for March 23rd and all the changes that we're about to go over here. They're adding a new battle pass. So if you completed yours, that's great. You got another month to finish it if you haven't. They're adding another NA Server West region, which is kind of risky. I'm not going to lie. You know, anytime you separate regions like that, you risk splitting your player base. But hopefully what this will do is this will give West Coast good enough ping that they can start establishing their own little region, and we'll see that grow because people want to play with them in the West Coast because they can get good ping. Yeah, they're renaming the goddess that gets all the creators in trouble to Eset, which is going to be really helpful for videos in the future. I actually really like playing her, but I avoided it because of all the content creator stuff. Tons of bug fixes from UI to gameplay. Health bars disappearing, things that have really plagued the game for a really long time. Anytime you hear anybody go, God, Smite is such a buggy game, this stinks, like why are there always so many bugs, like this is obviously them really taking an effort to fix some long-standing issues and things that have really frustrated players for a while. And then we've got all of these bug changes for these different gods. Some of the things are annoying. Some of these things are quality of life-ish changes. And yeah, you know, clipping, visual bugs, things like that, just to make the game more polished. Love to see it. And yeah, some other item issues where bugs were interacting with them. All right, on to the good stuff. The balance changes. First of all, we're starting out with items. Stone of Foul and Mail of Renewal complete reworks. Sage's Stone getting a little bit of changes, so it smoothly builds into Stone of Fall. Sometimes what happens is you have like tier 2 items that have better or different stats than their final form, which always feels bad because it feels like you're losing something, so they've adjusted this item accordingly. Stone of Fall, total rework. When you hit an enemy god with a base attack, you gain a stack of Fall's Blessing, giving you 2% damage mitigation per stack. At 3 stacks, you gain double the damage mitigation and 20% CCR, which lasts for 10 seconds. Remember, this can only be built on mages or guardians or anybody who does magical damage, so it's not like you could build Stone of Fall on Erlang and get, you know, 12 what is it, yeah, 12% mitigation just from a couple of auto attacks in the early game. It's 2,500 gold, so it's pretty expensive. 150 health. Guardians really like health items. 35 magical power, so you're going to be hitting hard. And Prot's a bolt type. I think this is kind of something that's a little bit understated here, is that it gives you protections of both type, and any item that does that is very, very valuable depending on how much it costs, right? Think of like Pridwin, think of like Mantle, Thebes. Anytime you are getting tankier to everybody on the map, it's a value item, and that's why I think Stolen Fall we're going to see built a lot more. You won't see this built on somebody like Yorm, because remember, like the item effects from Telekines or Demonic, Yorm's Breath and Fafnir Dragon Breath doesn't proc this, right? So it's not like you could just sit there and hold down left click or right trigger and get this passive up all the time with Yorm. I think this would be interesting for like Ao Kwang and the solo lane. People have been playing solo Kwang for a while, and this would be an interesting item. And yeah, definitely a lot more Stone of Fall. Definitely in the solo lane. I don't think we'll see it so much in support. The support items are pretty core right now. All right, Mail of Renewal rework. I'm not gonna lie, this one kind of pisses me off. Prior to this change, Mail of Renewal was easily one of the best items in the game outside of Conquest. If you think about it, right, 15% of your health or whatever it was over 3 seconds, anytime somebody dies or you killed an objective, think about that in Arena where people are constantly getting killed and you're constantly diving. Think about that in Clash or in Joust or anything else, or Assault where everybody's dying, right? You literally live forever, right? It seems like they're trying to rework this into a more like dive-centric Conquest item, or something along the lines of, you know, like a backline Peely item where you're taking damage along with your carries. But basically the big change is they have added physical and magical protections. Again, we talked about it earlier. Any item that gives you protections of both and makes you tankier to both types of damage is going to be pretty valuable. And adding this passive where when you hit by an enemy god, you gain a stack up to once a second. So I can only get 1 stack per second, and it increases my protections by 4 each time to a maximum of 5 stacks, lasting for 5 seconds. At max stacks, upon being hit, you're immediately healed for 15% of your max health, and allies will also get a 15% heal. This is kind of a weird one to me. I don't understand how the stacking works. Maybe I just need to check it out and get a feel for it, because my guess is what they want is like the opposite of Infused Sigil, right? Where you take a bunch of damage and then damage like kind of flows out from you. With this, it's like you take a bunch of damage and then healing flows out from you. It's like a burst heal around you. Yeah, you need to be hit for 5 total seconds. And I get that, right? Which is basically to say you don't want a support that can blink ult the enemy team, take 5 abilities, and then walk away with an instant burst heal of 15 seconds. Sorry, of 15%. That doesn't make any sense. So I get it. I think the one every second is a little long. I think maybe every half second, especially with how long these fights last in the end game. I mean, you're talking a maximum of like 6 seconds for a late game team fight, unless people are really spread out and you're chasing. That's a little tough for a support, especially when they're getting chewed apart by mages and hunters right now. So we'll see. I don't know that it is going to make a difference. Also, your allies have to be kind of close. 35 units is less than the length of a basic attack from a hunter, about 2/3 the basic attack range of a hunter. So, you know, you got to be kind of sitting on top of your allies to make it happen. Maybe this becomes like a dive item for a harassing solo laner, somebody who's going to be in the face of the enemy carries, but has some self peel that they can use to stay alive while they're doing it. So, like, think like Wukong, right, where I can get in their face. Maybe I take 3 stacks and then I go up in the air. I wait 2 seconds. I come back down. I take more damage. Then I get healed again. And my jungler that's diving with me gets healed. The fact that it can only occur once every 60 seconds is kind of but realistically, like, this feels like a one and done dragged out team fight item, which probably won't be very good if you have bursty characters in the other team. Like this is going to protect you against a Ra ult or a Scylla ult or a Thoth ult, but something like Merlin, who's going to kind of tick you down over time, I think this will probably be pretty valuable. It'd be really good against ADCs too. Yeah, I was actually just talking about that inbound, about how it's 2,400 gold and tank and 300 health and a bunch of HP 5. It's almost better than Sov as a starter tank item. The problem is going to be stacking it in the early game. Like, I don't think you're ever going to run into a situation where you're going to hit all 5 of those stacks. Like, yeah, you're going to get the extra protections, but realistically, because of the 1 second limit on it, you're not going to get that many. 61. Yeah, 61's at full stacks, though. When are you fighting for 6 seconds in the mid game? Never. It never lasts that long. 6 seconds of continuous damage. Never lasts that long. All right, attack speed item changes. Basically, you can only have 1 attack speed slow from items applied to them at a time. The debuff icons will show up on your bar, but you're actually only getting the reduction from the most offensive one, the one that's going to reduce it the most. If you are, a good example here is if somebody has a Witchblade and an Ichaival and they hit you with the 1 stack of the Ichaival, then the Witchblade's still going to be priority, and then as you stack up the Ichaival all the way, then the Ichaival will be priority. Which is kind of interesting, but this is really the way it should work. I can't wait till they do this with attack speed items. But no, I mean, this makes hunters a little bit stronger. They were kind of complaining about, the ability to stack anti-attack speed, which kind of, makes their damage pretty irrelevant. It also shuts down a bunch of jungle gods. So I like this change overall. Benevolence. So this is an item change because Sentinels is just getting so overpicked right now in support that there's almost no point to picking up Benevolence. I've done it a couple of times. It feels weaker. Compassion feels kind of bad to spec into because it's not straight prots. It's this weird, like, mitigate damage for your allies, but really not that much damage. And so I think they're trying to buff the tier 1 so you're a little bit more inclined to build it for the early game stats, and then Compassion just isn't as strong of a late game item. Whereas Sentinels is kind of a meh early game item, but then it has a really great late game upgrade. So they increase the health on it from 75 to 100. That's a bigger change than you think it is, especially early. If you have 600 health and all of a sudden you build this item, you get 700. That's a huge increase in your ability to fight. Gold per 5 seconds from 2 to 3. So if you think about that, the additional gold that it gives you goes up 50%. It seems like it's 1 gold, but it is giving you 50% more gold than it was before. That's a big change. And over the course of a game, every 5 seconds, think about how long games go. Do the math, right? How much gold are you going to get in a 40-minute game versus building Sentinels with this gold per 5 change? It also has a minimum bonus gold and XP value of 1. I think there were some issues with less than 1 values when 5-way splitting or things like that, where your allies weren't getting any gold or bonus XP. It was a little buggy issue. So I think they've done this to compensate for that. Yeah, and even in the early game, you get 1 extra gold per second, which is a huge difference. It seems like it's not. I swear to you, it seems like it's not, but it really is. This item is going to be phenomenal. All right. Mannequin Scepter changes. No longer provides 3 flat damage reduction. I think this is great. Nobody was building it for the damage reduction anyway. You built it for the clear. This was kind of just nice. And then when you defeat jungle monsters that are burned, you restore 15 health and 15 mana. This is instantly one of the best jungle items in the game right now. I would pick this up, depending on who you are, over pretty much anything, even including Boombas. You know, you're gonna auto attack on camps regardless of who you are. The jungler or the mannequin's hidden blade upgrade from this, where you instantly take 15% of the enemy team's HP just by landing on them from out of combat. So think of gods that kind of fly up into the sky or do really hard engages where they blink onto the enemy backline like Hun Bats, right? If you're coming from out of combat and you drop on them with that hidden blade, you're going to do an obscene amount of damage. And it really doesn't matter in the late game that you're, you know, that you're missing out on the extra damage on the jungle or whatever, right? Because it doesn't matter that because of the passive of Mannequin Scepter, right? The Mannequin Scepter is going to give you the extra damage that you need. You defeat the jungle monsters, you restore 15 health and 15 mana, which, you know, you're still, if you don't have health sustain in your kit, you're still going to end up net lower after you clear a camp. But this mana increase, think of somebody like Pele or Thanatos or Arachne, right? Who or even Baka, right? Where you could use this Mannequin Scepter combined with like a Golden Blade and mow through camps, but you're still going to lose out on all that mana. So you can use those auto attacks to clear camps really, really quickly. You're going to get some mana sustain back. You already should have the health sustain in your kit. I think this is going to be an awesome item moving forward. Eye of the Jungle. Increased magical power from 20 to 25. You get HP 5 and MP 5 while you're in the jungle. So all the sustain that we were missing on Eye of the Jungle, which by the way feels really bad to not have sustain unless you have it in your kit. Most people just build it because it's good. Decreased attack speed. Okay, so it's not good for hunters level 1 in lane. The base HP 5 is 10, but you get an extra 15. So you have 25 in the jungle. It seems really high. So 25 HP 5 in the jungle is obscenely high. So it basically took the natural HP 5 down, but the jungle HP 5 up to make this more of a jungler item. So your carries couldn't just build into Protector of the Jungle and just shred everyone. All right. Protector of the Jungle, decreased physical power from 65 to 55. Probably a good call. And then decrease the attack speed. They're probably just making this more of a jungler item instead of just super good on hunters. Yeah, it was too efficient of an item. Yeah, before you even entered the jungle, it was just a good item. And so I think they're just taking away some of the base stats and really leaving that bonus where you know, you're in between the lanes. Sands of Time change. Decreased cost from 800 to 750 and increased MP5 from 5 to 10. I think it's a good change. This item might get picked up more. I feel like Sands and Pendulum are really good items for gods that spam the absolute hell out of their abilities, right? So if you're not able to stack Archmages because you're using a Discordia ability every 3 seconds, right, and you're not gaining those Archmages stacks, it's kind of wasted scaling damage, right? Whereas with something like Pendulum, which gives you 190 power, right? 190 power. And again, I'm talking about the evolution versions of it, right? Because both give you, you know, better clear and good mana sustain as it is. But Sands of Time has to be a good enough item that makes you want to spec into Pendulum, because alternate timeline is just kind of useless. So increasing the MP5 and decreasing the cost means you get more pots, you get into your build quicker, and you're able to sit there and just wing out abilities in the early game and gain your pressure, not from clear off of a single wave with true damage. You're going to gain your clear from just spamming your abilities. Like you could use easily with 5 to 10 MP5, you can, and the passive unstands the time to begin with, you can literally just spam all your abilities on every single camp to clear it really quickly and every single wave to clear it really quickly to get to your next source of farm, which over the course of a game is going to build up to a heavy lead. I think this is like quickly becoming my favorite like early pressure mage item versus something like Archmages, which is more geared towards the late game where you're trying to just one-shot somebody with a big ability. Sentinel's Gift. Increase the cost from 500 to 600. This is actually a pretty big change. What this means is that you're setting your tanks back another 100 gold in the early game. Right now, you can buy Sentinels, Boots 2, and 2 health pots, which is enough health or effective health with just those potions to fight in lane, get to 700 or 800 gold, back, buy your reinforced greaves, make it back to lane, and all of a sudden you're unkillable. And you have an incredible amount of pressure because you got your boots before the other guy did, or you're in mid and now you have the protections the other guy doesn't. So you're probably going to see the return of the Boots 1 Chalice and Potions start, which is a little bit of a slower start from supports. I'm not necessarily sure I like that very much. I think it's going to hold them in the ADC lane for longer. I don't think you're going to see them rotate as early as they do. And on top of that, you know, tanks already feel like they're a little weak in the early game. They feel like, you know, you take so much damage, you have to build into so many fast protections, and this is just delaying it even further when you're going an option like Sentinel's Gift. And I think it's really going to feel bad on tanks to have this happen. You know, I hope they mess around with the early game damage a little bit more, so that you don't feel like wet paper and you're not supposed to sit in lane for 45 minutes. I really like the idea of, hey, get my ADC to the point where they can clear and let me get the hell out. And this change is going to make you sit in lane a heck of a lot longer. You're still pretty much going to wait in lane until you're going to finish boots and probably tier 1 of your next item, which should be something like a Sov or a Wingblade, and then you're going to rotate out. All right. Tainted Steel, decrease the cost from 750 to 700, increase physical power, increase magical power. Basically, you're buying this because you want to be the anti-heal guy. You don't want to have to fight against a Guan Yu who's got a level 5 ranked heal at level 9 or whatever it is, or 10 or 12, because you'll just never kill him in lane. So Tainted Steel is a good way to counter matchup that, especially if you have a god who does naturally anti-heal in their kit, somebody like Cullen or like Sobek solo. If you could, yeah, you can buy Tainted Steel. Anyway, decreasing the cost of this makes it feel less bad to build. You get a little bit more power, so it's really rewarding you for building these anti-heal items. Anti-heal always feels bad to build, no matter what it is. The item could have 100 power on it, and anti-heal would always feel bad to build in all forms. Tainted Steel was no exception to that rule. The upgraded options of it were actually pretty good, but starting the starter item into somebody who's got Sigil or Axe or Death's Toll or Mannequin or literally at Bluestone, anything, right? Always felt really, really bad. And so decreasing the cost of this, give it a little bit more power, so you're going to have a little bit better clear. It's going to make this feel a lot better. Death's Toll... this is a mistake. I think Death's Toll is already a fantastic item. We're decreasing the cost by 100, decreasing the health restore. I guess they're decreasing the scaling of the health restore. All right, maybe this isn't that bad. You don't get as much in lane, but it costs you less to build it. So your clear is going to go up, your sustain is going to go down, and you don't heal off of towers and phoenixes. This actually might be an okay change. I should have read the whole thing before I commented, but yeah, I think this is a good way to kind of balance this item out. It was kind of funny because Death's Toll was OP, and then they changed it, and then it was underpowered. Nobody wanted to build it. They all wanted to build Hooded Cal, and then they went back and they were like, wait a minute, Death's Toll is kind of good, and so now they have to kind of shift it a little bit more to compensate for that. Death Embrace, kind of with the same thing that Death Soul went through. No longer heals you off of towers and phoenixes. Pretty consistent change. Vampiric Shroud. They're shifting this item to focus more on offense and less on defense. Mages, you know, this was kind of the only item that I would have built on like a Zeus or a Apuash or Anubis or anybody who just really doesn't have any good mobility. And now they've kind of made that sustain option of it way worse. They made it cost less so it doesn't feel as bad to build, but lowering the protections on it and increasing the power makes you way more vulnerable in the mid lane, gives you way less sustain. They're reducing the health you gain by 30%. They're reducing the physical protections you get by 30%. And increasing your magical power pretty substantially at 60%, right? So the shifts around, when you think about it on a percentage basis, they've really shifted into a magical power item, which is going to give you better clear. I think the gods that this was built on to begin with probably had pretty good clear to begin with. So I don't know that they needed this. I think it's just a less safe option for the gods that are kind of immobile. War Flag and War Banner, increasing the buff durations. Item is still garbage. Not because it's a bad item. War Flag is an okay item if you're playing in arena, but Benevolence and Sentinels are so good compared to this that there's no reason to build this in Conquest. I think it's fine in Arena. It's fine in Clash. You want to build it in Assault, go ahead. You're going to fall behind in Gold compared to somebody who has Sentinels or has Benevolence. But that doesn't really matter in other game modes as much as it does in Conquest, which I think this is going to be a weak item until they figure out some way around that. All right, guys, up next is the god changes. So we went through the items. Now let's talk about the gods. First up is Cupid. This ability now has a visual and audio cue when you're going to get stunned. This is like one of the best changes of the entire patch. This darn god forever. You get hit by a heart bomb and you just sit there and your butt clenches. And every time you get hit by it, you have to play like it's gonna stun you every single time. You don't fight through the damage. You almost always back off. You get away from your teammates no matter what. And now there's going to be a visual element where both your teammates and your allies are going to know whether or not you get stunned, in addition to you, obviously, which is the most important part, right? Heart bomb, it just creates this natural uncertainty when you get hit by it. That's really confusing and really frustrating because you have no idea how you should play it. So you have to default to playing safely when you get hit by it. This is an awesome change. Hachi, decrease the post-fire result from 0.73 seconds to 0.4. Post-fire of almost 3/4 of a second is an eternity, right? Look at a stopwatch and how long 0.73 seconds is. Think about that. It's like 730 milliseconds of ping after you fire the projectile, or sorry, after you get off the horse before you can do something else. SMITE, I'm shaking the camera. SMITE is a game where you can only ever be doing one thing at a time. So if you are post firing from mounted archery, you can't dash, you can't use your 2, you can't use your beads, anything like that. So a post fire of 0.73 I think is one of the longest in the game. I have to check with Flare Boot, but lowering that to 0.4, it's going to feel much more smooth. This was so bad, it was to the point that players were complaining that Hachi was bugged because they couldn't beads after using the ability. Spawn of Set, basically his 2 is no longer going to trigger item effects that activate after using ability. So you can't Hydra's Lament spam, you can't Bumba's Hammer spam, and just infinitely lower your cooldowns or do extra damage. I think it's a good change. It probably needed to be in the game for a while. My thinking is that they wanted to make this change a while back and they couldn't because it was a programmatic thing that they had to do, which was going to take a long period of time, because this has been frustrating for a while. Even just Hydra's unset before in season 7 was pretty substantial. All right, moving on to the really good one, my girl Mulan. If you guys have watched my stream at all or watched my content at all, I'm a big Mulan fan. I'm an even bigger Mulan fan in the jungle. I think she's awesome. She sustains, she does damage, she's got mobility, she's fun. Her kit flows well together. I love Mulan. And they gave her 3 buffs, and I am so here for it. Spear thrust, decrease the slow duration, or increase the slow duration from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. That means you're going to be able to stick to people and just bop the hell out of them. Especially since you're usually what's going to happen is you're going to pull with the grapple, get an auto off, you're going to hit the spear thrust, which usually slows them, confirms the damage from your 1, and then normally what would happen is the slow would wear off once the attack speed from your 1 was activated. Now you're going to get all that extra attack speed. You're going to get 2 or 3 autos off before they get out of range of you, which if you're built with any amount of damage is going to do so much. This is actually a huge buff, and I think people are understating how good it is. All right, onto the grapple, decreasing the cooldown from 16 seconds, scaling down to 14 seconds. This is actually pretty consistent with a lot of movement abilities, whether it's the grapple or a dash or anything like that, where really its primary function is to displace the character wherever they go. Scaling it down like this means that you're going to have so many more of these in the late game when you have a bunch of cooldown built. You know, I don't know what the math is on 40% cooldown in 14 seconds, but you're basically going to have this rope up every time that you go through a rotation of abilities, right? You're gonna pull with the rope, you're gonna auto 2, auto 1, auto, and then your rope's gonna come right back on cooldown. So they're gonna dash, you're gonna take 2 steps forward, and you're gonna pull them right back. Her ability to lock down characters in the late game is gonna go up substantially. It seems like not a big change with 16 seconds coming down to 14 seconds, but she's gonna be able to just rip people apart every 8.4 seconds. Thank you, JXL. Say hi to YouTube. And then Divine Mastery. This ability can now be canceled early. All right. Instantly, they have made Mulan a jungler, right? This ability is not for doing damage anymore. It's not for CC anymore. This will become a cancelable gap close. It's basically just an ultimate dash that you use to catch up to whoever you're fighting. So I'm going to blink on you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to 2 you. I'm going to use my abilities on you. You're going to leap away. I'm going to ult to you. My 3 is going to come back off cooldown, and I'm just going to stick to you so hardcore. I think Mulan is going to be one of the best junglers in the entire game after this. And she also, has in her passive that she's going to reduce cooldown further. So you're just going to be all over carries with this. I think they're going to have to make some significant changes to either her damage or the way she plays in general based on the way that they've adjusted her here. Mulan is top tier jungler after these changes. That's true, Falkio. All right, so Falkio's point is that you can ult in and knock up and then cancel and then pull out of the knock up. But the key there, kind of like Hachiman earlier, is that it depends on the post fire from the ultimate. How long after you cancel the ultimate are you able to use another ability? If it's half a second, well, it's about a half a second knock up. If it's 3/4 of a second where you're still rooted in place before you can use another ability, then it might it might make a difference. You might have to aim after that. Athena changes. Athena is not popular despite the map being huge. I think she's a good character. I didn't think she needed this, but they are increasing her taunt duration in the early game. It still maxes out at 2 seconds, and now her taunt is going to do damage. I'll let that sink in for a second. Her taunt is going to do damage.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
And the important thing about her taunt doing damage is not the fact that she's going to have another 170 damage plus 30% scaling, which isn't a ton, right? It's the fact that this is now going to proc item abilities. So this is now another Soul Reaver proc. This is another stack of your Soul Gem. This is another Ethereal Staff proc. This god is going right back into the jungle. Like, Weekend's reading this, getting excited. He's salivating right now. Just blah, 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 blah. Maybe even Athena solo would actually be good for the clear, and she'll be able to rotate to team fights really well like Apollo will. But I think Athena's go right back into the jungle. 30% scaling plus 170 added to your whole combo when you're building like 500 power is actually pretty solid. But I think it's the fact that it procs abilities now, or will proc abilities, or will proc item effects is going to be the big thing, where it's so much easier to stack like Soul Gem and other things like that. All right. Yeah, she does do a lot of damage to begin with, but now it's going to be oppressive. 170 base damage. 50 is not that much early, but you are maxing the taunt out early. So her clear is going to get better. Her dude, she's going right to the top of the meta, whether it's in jungle or support, either one.
No.
Both.
No. Turn around
Venom
and run.
Soldier, thank you for the follow.
Run while you still can.
All right. Horace is getting a little bit of a buff. They're changing the cooldowns on him. They're lowering the scaling, the downward scaling of his abilities, so that when he has them ranked up, he can use them more often. One of the biggest problems with Horace is his cooldown lengths. Even with a ton of cooldown, he still feels like you're waiting around for his abilities to come up before you can use them again, like 8 or 9 seconds, even in the late game. So to bring that down by a whole second by the time you max these out, which should be your... Well, it depends. If you're fighting a lot, you max your 1 and your 2 first. If you're not fighting a lot, you max your 1 and your 3. So it'll have a substantial change depending on how you want to fight him. It's probably more incentive to build him or to level him up in this aggressive mode where you can be kind of constantly fighting. But we'll see. I don't think this is enough to bring Horace into the meta. But it might be. AMC. Increased max hives from 6 to 7. This is actually a really interesting change, and I think it has to do with the fact that the map is so much bigger. Whenever you increase the amount of space that somebody has to travel, you're decreasing the effectiveness of anybody who has any kind of ability that is based on distance, right? So just by having a bigger map, things like Chang'e Bunny gets nerfed, right? It takes longer for her to go buy an item. It takes longer for AMC to get back to lane because he can't put hives up the whole way to get him there quicker. Mercury can't ult the full length of a lane anymore. He might be able to. But, you know, it takes longer for him to charge the ult to get to somebody who's all the way down the lane. Things like that. Anytime where there's an increase in distance, certain abilities just get nerfed inherently. And I think a good way to combat this is the hive count coming up means he can put those hives all the way out to his lane and he can zoom on out there, especially if he's leveling it first. I think this is a really good change. Increasing the slow from 20% at all ranks in the honey to 20, scaling to 30% per rank. This is freaking miserable. I hate this god for his slow to begin with. I think increasing slows of any kind in this game feels so bad. You know, I think just psychologically from a player perspective, you know, players understand stuns, they understand silence, they understand what's happening to them, but slows are the most frustrating thing ever because you can move, you can attack, you can use all your abilities. You just can't get where you want to go, right? When I'm stunned, I'm like, ah, shit, I'm stunned. Like I'm done here, right? Slows just feel bad. Right? That's why they nerfed Gem of Isolation back in the day, because everybody was just getting slowed and it just felt bad to play against. Was the item particularly powerful? No. Were people using it to win more often than others? Absolutely not. But everybody just hates being slowed. And so anytime you increase a slow like this by 10%, even in the late game, or excuse me, in the mid to late game, this is just going to feel awful. Shibalanki fell out of the meta. Poison darts increasing max darts enemies can be hit by from 3 to 5. I didn't know you could actually hit people with more than 1. Don't tell anybody that. Extra hit damage. Poison doesn't stack. Oh, and then they increase the amount of max darts. I think this is probably for clear. Clear and poke is going to go up with this. You can kind of just step up to the wave and use this to poke. Pull your minions back to you. You have a much higher chance of getting effectiveness out of this ability when you step up. I think this is okay. I don't think he's going to be meta anytime soon. I think he'll just not suck as much. My nose itches. All right. Thor remains a solid choice to follow this guy when it comes to late game. Thor is the worst god in the game statistically right now. He has like a 42% win rate at all ranks. He's a hard god to play. He's a hard god to play well. I love Thor. He's my favorite character, but he feels terrible. Terrible right now. Awful. Increasing the physical power scaling on final hit from Berserker Barrage from 50 to 60%. This is a good like mid to late game change. His clear is going to go up a little bit in the mid game. He's probably going to one-shot camps a little bit easier, maybe one auto attack after he's done using it. This means nothing for his early game. This means that when you land on people, when you land on team fights in the late game and you just want to use your 3 and get out, it doesn't feel as bad. I think it's a good change. 10% scaling on, what? 300 power, another 30 damage. It'll help his clear. That's it. Unstable manifestation on Soul. I think this is a really good change. Trying to manage heat decay in this new map is really tough. You can't use like one of the Chad Harpies. You can use the neutral Chad Harpy to try and keep it stacked if you want, but it's kind of a contested camp. So you're putting yourself out of position to do it. Or you got to kind of get some cooldown and spam your abilities or use your 3 to keep the heat up in between waves. It just doesn't feel good. And dropping the decay so she feels like she's strong throughout the duration of team fights and the duration of clearing and kind of playing in the mid lane. I think that we are actually going to see more mid lane play out of her with this because there's lots of stuff to do in the mid lane where you can really take advantage of having this heat up all the time. All right. We're back and we're on to Apwash. Apwash doesn't do anything in Conquest. I think that they are probably dangerously close to reworking him. I think they are getting to the point where they're either going to make one of two decisions. Let him be good in other game modes, and that's it. And that's gonna be where it stops. Or they're going to have to rework his kit. And my guess is this is probably one of the last changes we're going to see, or last adjustments to Apwash before they kind of give up. Increasing the healing that you get from picking up corpses from 5% of max health to 7% is a pretty big change. I think that lowers the amount of total corpses you would need to full heal yourself significantly. What was it? It'd be like 20 corpses versus, God, my brain's not working today. Anyway, 20 corpses versus like 15. Anyway, long story short, you're gonna get much more impactful healing out of this. I think this might actually make him a solo laner. You think about the Deathwalker days where he built full cooldown, breastplate, gem of ISO, and literally just walked around walking on his corpses and blowing people up with it. I think he'll move into the solo lane with this, especially with anti-heal being prioritized and still very good and valuable. I don't think we'll see him as a mid laner. And then the initial damage scaling from 10% to 20%. So if you just hit something with Corpse Explosion and you don't have a bunch of minions on the ground, this is going to do more damage. You can use it to finish people off better. But again, it's scaling damage, not base damage. So you have to have power built for this to be effective. All right, and we are on to the final change of the 8.3 patch notes, which is Loki. Loki's Flurried Strike hit scaling are going to go from 18% to 25%, which basically increased the scaling of this ability by 35% from 160 to 195. This is a huge change. This is a lot of extra damage. If you think about it, right? So if you land all of the Flurried Strikes and you have 100 power, you're going to get an extra 35 damage out of it. You get 100 power off of your boots and your first item. So if you build a full power build from this, this ability is going to be swinging. And I mean swinging. But anyway, I think it's a good change. I think Loki is pretty underwhelming. I like the fact that they're focusing on the scaling for this god. Anytime you buff base damage, what you're saying is we want you to have a better early game, and we want you to also be more impactful when you build semi-tanky, right? So think of warriors. Warriors just have really high base damage. They do damage no matter what they have built, and they have low scaling. Assassins and mages have really high scaling. Well, some of them have really high scaling. right? Where the more power you build, the more damage you're going to do. So when you have high base damage, all you do is you rank the ability up. So, you know, level 1 through 6 or whatever it is. 1 through 9, and you max your abilities out, right? Or somebody who needs 2, 3, 4 items to be really swinging with it, right? So because they've increased the scaling on this, it means that if you build full power on Loki, you are going to be doing a hell of a lot more damage in the end. You combine this with the other abilities that he uses. You combine this with the fact that he's incentivized in his entire kit to build full power. And I think Loki is going to be kind of inching back closer towards his old identity, which is let's just blow stuff up, right? And let's one-shot people. I think this is a solid change. He did feel underwhelming. I think he's going to see a little bit more play because of this. But I don't know for sure if this is going to bump him back into the meta. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the Season 8 8.3 patch notes. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. If you agree or disagree, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. Check out my Twitter. All the links are below in the description. And, stop by the stream if you want to do some of this live with us as we theory craft every night on Twitch. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.